Hi everyone, and welcome to another Top 10 by ThinkerThemer. And by another, I mean the second, because it's the second that we've ever done. I'm Amy, this is my partner Maggie, and today we are talking about games that made our relationship stronger.
Stronger.
And we didn't plan to do that at the same time.
No, we didn't.
That was kind of cute, but
Yeah.
stronger, because by stronger, well, there's lots of definitions of stronger.
Well, they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's
and
right.
so I felt
So-
like that makes sense. Because like
Yeah.
things got tense.
Things did get tense.
But if you overcome that together, it means that then you are you are definitely stronger. You know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and
if you're a fan of the channel, you'll know that we don't tend to play cooperative games. We play very competitive games generally, and so those ones always really, they push the boundaries of relationships sometimes, whether that's a romantic relationship or a friendship, family members, you name it, they're all at risk in competitive games. But let's get straight into our list. So we're going to count them down from the ones that created the most tension to...
Well, no,
Oh,
sort
sorry.
of like, 10 to 1. It's the usual, like, number one is probably the
Oh my
trickiest.
god, are we going to fight over the order? No.
But then we'll have to
My
make
bad.
a top 10 videos that
Okay,
make
I got it wrong. I got it wrong. Okay.
Okay.
What, we're
Number
gonna
10.
We're going to make a list of the top 10 videos that made our relationship
That's exactly
stronger.
right, yeah. Starting with this will be number one.
Number one. Okay. Number 10
Number
is
10. Carcassonne.
Carcassonne.
Which was actually one of the earlier games in our kind of gaming
Gateway.
hobby, I'm not going to say career, but adventure, I'll say. Where, again, it's one of those, but on the surface, you'd think that it should be fairly fine. Everyone's kind of building their own
the
thing.
The scenery is quite beautiful. You're all contributing tasks. It's a tile laying game. Most people will be familiar with Carcassonne, where you are placing tiles, but then also placing your own coloured meeples in order to get ownership of certain parts of the board for scoring at the end of the game. And that's where it gets a little competitive, because if you're playing Carcassonne correctly, there are many things that you can do to dash other people's plans, particularly around the area control of cities. I think that's one where
stealing the ownership. As you're kind of very laboriously building your city and going, this is going to be a great, point scorer.
And then as soon as you do that, everyone wants to get in on the action.
It gets a big red target on its back.
And the way that you can place tiles such that you're leaving a space in between your city and this giant city, and then eventually you're going to close it up and kind of get in on the action. We have had multiple frustrating kind of games of this with ourselves, but also like in bigger groups where we tend to target each other's conquests.
Yeah, and I think it's partly that someone's been working hard at creating something, be it a road, be it a city, and then either someone comes in to try and like just ride the wave and ride the benefits, or just try and stop them from being the only one scoring for that.
Yeah.
Or the worst one in my books.
I know what you're going to say, the edges.
Well, yeah, when you open, so for example with the city, if you open it to the point where that person's now no longer ever going to be able to complete it, there are no tiles left.
Yes.
That you would be able to successfully put there to be able to claim that as a completed city.
I love how, but you can also make it as difficult as possible by putting like the weirdest edges on all four sides and just leaving that one space that's almost impossible to find that tile.
Yeah, that one
the one
tile.
perfect tile.
Yeah.
So that is our number 10, Carcassonne. What a classic. Our number 9 is, okay, as we move through this list, there are games where I will say that they affected me more, and there's games that affected Maggie more. In general, though, a lot of games do make Maggie quite sad, but this number 9 is a game that really got to me. And
it's probably because I'm the more emotional person, and you're fairly rational, so
I am very rational.
It takes more effort to get you to be reactive emotionally. Yeah.
But the number 9 is Barrage, and not for the reasons that you may think, because this game is a very take that kind of game, because what you are doing is you are kind of collecting water through resources that you've built to power, to create electricity.
Falling down the mountain and you're kind of capturing it,
But you can actually kind of funnel off water away from other people's generators and things and really steal that water for your own. But that is not what got us. That I was fine with, because you can kind of, you're both doing that. A lot of take that. I don't mind as long as everybody's doing it. But what really got me with this game is I'm just terrible at it. And Maggie,
a pride thing.
But like from the very first game, Maggie was excellent at it. And it just got to this point where I was lagging so far behind, and she was so smugly making these electricity noises every time you generated
electricity noises regard. I just love doing the zzz, zzz, as I kind of move it along. But it wasn't to be smug. I was just enjoying the thematic elements of the game.
But it's not that I wasn't getting it. I don't know why. I'm just really terrible at it. And anyway, it escapes me, but I was just getting increasingly frustrated with Maggie just sailing through as if it wasn't even a challenge, and myself just being like, why? I love worker placement. Like, what is happening? Why can I not get this game? So that is our number 9, Barrage. Yeah.
Our number 8 is a game called Web of Spies. Now, this one's on the list for slightly different reasons, because it wasn't so much because we have a tense time playing it. It's just, it's a very tense game, and we have been in situations where people...
One situation in particular.
One in particular is quite, it's highlighted in my mind, where another couple was pretty much breaking up in front of our eyes as a consequence of what was happening in the game. And like, so even though it was making our relationship stronger, because like under the table we're kind of like, I love you. Like, we hope we never take a game this seriously. And like, to where it no longer, like, our own personal well-being is no longer important. Like, it's like,
it's just one of those awkward moments where you're watching another couple completely implode over the fact that they had... one of them had killed the other person and eliminated them out of the game, because in Web of Spies, you are basically attacking each other with cards and hoping that you've got enough defense in your hand of cards. But it's pretty aggressive, the game, because when you use your defense, you don't get to restock until it comes back around to you, which means the whole group can gang up on you if they like and try and eliminate you out of the game and kill all of your spies. But this particular example... We thought it brought us closer just because we were like, oh, let's never fight. Let's never fight ever again.
Let's never be like that
Let's
in a
never
game.
be that tense in a game. So that is our number 8, Web of Spies.
Yeah. Number 7. Our number 7 is a fun game called Blood Rage that Amy spent a long time painting minis of.
I did.
And it looks amazing. Like, you did an amazing job with that one.
Yeah, and so we've really been getting into this game, and it triggered me into... I had a moment, because in this game, if you're familiar with Blood Rage, you need to really work out what your strategy is going to be from round to round by drafting cards that are going to suit that strategy. And I had been... not winning the game a lot, maybe coming close to winning, and I was very focused on my strategy for this particular game, and I had set it up perfectly such that I would have the right combination of monsters, all of my crew in one location, and I just was like, this is going to be beautiful what I've set up here. And in the very first move of that round, Maggie took out my whole team.
I had one of those super powerful combinations of, like, even though I only had like a couple of my warriors in there, I just had this combination of cards that just made them ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
And it just completely destroyed.
But also I hadn't, like, all of the cards that I'd collected were about that strategy, and so there was just no way for me to recover. The writing was on the wall. It was like later in the game, and I just knew I couldn't recover from it. So I scraped together some points, but I was very quiet for a while, and I did just stare at Maggie for a while like this.
She was devastated.
I can't believe you just did that.
The worst thing about this was when I did it, it wasn't like I planned it and I was taking great pleasure in it. It was just like, I can totally win this fight, without realizing that Amy had put all of her strength, all of her work that she'd been kind of working up until this point in that one area, and I just like battled it away, sent everybody off to Valhalla.
I'm not really one to have a tantrum, and we'll come back to that later. But I am definitely one that I go quite quiet, and I will be like, babe, why did you do that? And then Maggie will eventually be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize.
I really didn't.
But the damage is already done. Anyway, that is our number 7, Blood Rage.
Yeah, I really did have a lot of rage in her blood at that
I did
time.
have Blood Rage.
It's quite thematic, I guess.
Very thematic. But another one that involves me is our number 6, and our number 6 is Bonanza. Bonanza. Okay, we both love the game Bonanza, but there was one particular occasion where Bonanza got a little bit heated because core to this game is being able to exchange away your cards with other people.
Negotiation.
Get them out of trouble, but also, you know, because you can't change the order of cards in your hands, you'll need to clean out those cards.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of negotiation in the game.
Yeah.
And my friends, including Maggie, decided that they would put a bean embargo on me.
Yeah.
There was no trading with the Amy Bean Corporation.
One of the things that strangely happens with Amy, and I still haven't quite figured out why this is often, doesn't matter the group of people that we're playing with, there'll be whatever the opposite of queen making is. Like there'll be like a queen targeting of like make sure that this person doesn't win. And I think it's because you're very smart, and so people are kind of naturally threatened or feel like you have a natural advantage. And so it's like, let's take down Amy. But it happens consistently, and that happened in this particular game.
Okay, and I have to say, I don't think I may have won Bonanza once in the entire time that we've owned it. I'm not good at it at all, and so that was just adding insult to injury that I'm not good at it anyway, and everybody, including Maggie, was getting up on me. It was not a fun time.
It's not one of my proudest moments. No, in hindsight, it's like, that's not nice. You know when you get into that like group psychology and everyone's kind of
I was laughing. It was pretty funny, but at the same time I was also very sad because
I feel bad about that. I'm sorry.
Okay. See? Stronger.
Yeah.
We're stronger because of it.
Exactly. But Bonanza,
I'm
beware.
just going to harbour some low-lying resentment. I do love Bonanza still though.
Yeah.
So that's number 6. Our number 5, they're a publisher where they have coined, or people have coined, the term getting splotted. And that's quite fitting because our number 5 is a game called Roads and Boats.
Yeah.
We've done a full review of this game and you can check that out. But this one is a fun time.
This is for both of us. I think this can be frustrating and like infuriating for both of us. So I feel like it's quite even. And I think the reason for it in this one is that shared resources. So anything that gets produced, you never really own it unless it's actually on one of your carriers. So if it's on one of your vehicles or one of your kind of whatever. What that lends itself to is, you put a lot of effort into building, for example, or like, getting a mine set up, and that has limited resources, and anybody can kind of come around and then start taking advantage of those resources there. Or anyone can come around and like focus their efforts on building the roads and the infrastructure to go and steal all of your stuff without having to do any real building of their own, which has also happened.
Yes.
Or block you out of your own stuff that you built. Like all of a sudden you come back and it's like, what the hell? There wasn't a wall here before. Where did this come from?
I know, the game is really mean because you can build walls that stop people traveling through, and that those walls can block them from their own things that they've built.
Yeah.
And it's
ridiculous.
It's a really interesting game because it takes so much effort to create or generate these I guess different manufacturing
factories.
All the factories that create things.
Yeah.
And then anybody can use those. So while someone else is doing a very diligent job of building this nicely
prosperous and cohesive industry
village
in town.
I could just be focusing on transport, like Maggie said. And one great example of a game,
thief in the night, just coming in the middle of the evening, packing everything onto the back of her ute.
Maggie is someone who's very risk adverse and tends to put up a lot of walls and things like that very soon to protect. She's very conscious of where I am at all times, even when I'm all the way over the other side of the board. No. I want to talk about one particular game where I built up all of the mines and the mines were generating gold and all of these very useful things. Maggie built up a army of boats that were coming in behind my mines and just taking the resources and shipping them back.
Putting them onto the back of my ship and sailing away in the night.
And I think I hadn't focused on my transport infrastructure, so I had one donkey chasing after a fleet of Maggie's ships going away with my gold.
Yeah.
So
that would be very powerless.
Yeah, it's a very intensely competitive game, and if you don't work furiously at the beginning, you can get left behind very quickly. But that is our number 5.
Yeah.
Roads and Boats.
Our number 4 is a game called Paris, La Cité de la Lumière. La Cité de
The City of Lights.
The City of Lights. Beautiful little game, comes in a beautiful little box, and it's played in the box, which I think is so different and kind of cool because it kind of gives you the structure, and yeah, I love it. Well, I love the box. I don't love the game, even though I think it's a very, very good, like, complex, layered game. This is one of my frustration ones.
It's not fun playing with Maggie, but it is a lot of fun beating Maggie. But not very difficult.
If you'd like to see me suffer and like fume in frustration because my brain doesn't quite want to cooperate at that time.
No. Maggie, this is, again, like Barrage, where I just could not find the right strategy. This one really escaped Maggie from the very beginning. And for me, it clicked like straight away, and I just love this little game, but it is so fiercely competitive because you are drafting polyomino tiles, but you're also weighing that up with placing tiles, cobblestone tiles into the box, and that's going to dictate where you're going to be able to place those polyomino tiles in the second phase of the game. And what that creates is all this tension around whether you're trying to stop your opponent on the board and then trying to disrupt their plans to place tiles that you know they've already selected for the second round. And then on top of that, in the second round, there's all these mean actions that you can do to really mess with the board and mess with the other player. And it takes a lot of thinking through all of the possible scenarios of what your opponent might be going to do. It's also just really mean. And Maggie just struggled to be one step ahead of me, and I was frustrating her plans, and she was really shutting down. And actually, we'd been playing a lot of games in a row, and she just decided that was it. She was going to go call her mum and not play any games anymore.
I just needed a break. And sometimes you just have to acknowledge when you need a break, and that's fine.
Yes.
But yeah.
I mean, and this is interesting because it's a 2-player only game.
2-player only, yeah.
And I feel like it's a similar kind of feel to a more abstract game in that you get really frustrated with it and then you kind of don't want to play it anymore. And then I realized that I probably need to find someone else to play it with, and that might be the case for this wonderful little game.
Yeah, because I think I can appreciate all the layers that went into it, and that's it. Like, there's like multiple layers of puzzle. There's like the initial puzzle, which is how you lay out the land so that then you're able to put the tiles on top of it, the polyomino tiles on top of it. Then there's the polyomino tiles and the timing of whether or not you're going to be drafting the stuff that's good for you or hate drafting the stuff that the other person's counting on. And then there's the other layer of like, how do I further frustrate plans by kind of messing with the setup that they've been working to get to this point.
And in general, you don't like anything where someone like undoes your building or creation in a game.
Yeah, I also, from like trying to feel good about myself, I usually don't like to feel like I am in a prosperity situation at the expense of someone else, because often that's the reality of it is like, I just don't like feeling like an idiot. And often I so often feel like I just feel stupid playing it, because I'm like, why can't I see all these layers, or how is it so easy for somebody else to see all those layers?
But it's just different types of games are really going to resonate with different people. But one thing and when we say that our relationship was made stronger, because what happens with this game, I got really excited by the game because I love something that's mechanically really great, something that with a lot of tension. This game has a lot of tension. So I was very happy and having a good time. And every time I was smiling and laughing, Maggie would say to me, you're not helping.
Well, that wasn't so much it. It was just like, because I would be in my world of pain, and I'm like, I'm really frustrated at the moment. It's like, oh, I hadn't noticed. It's like, I like pokey. I'm like, this is not helping. Like, I'm trying to like open up and like share how devastating this is right now for me. And you're like,
oh, come on.
Not to that level, but
I am not a bad winner and I am not a bad loser. Maggie is all emotion in gaming.
Yeah, if I'm losing by a lot.
Yeah. Which is sad for me because sometimes I like
you love to win by a lot.
I do like to win by a lot sometimes. Okay, that is our number 4, Paris City of Lights. Our number 3 is, now here we go. This game, probably one of the most angsty I've ever seen Maggie, to the point where now she refuses to play this game. Yeah. Like blanket rule.
This is just not my thing.
This is not for Maggie. And that is our number 3, Blockers.
Yeah. And that's what I would actually describe Paris, the one that we just talked about. Like Paris is Blockers with a theme. Like that, that's exactly what it feels like to me. It's like 3 layers of Blockers, but with a theme over the top, so it's not just pure abstract.
Yeah, it's more complex than Blockers. But Blockers, stripped down, is really just exactly as it's termed. The objective is to block all of your opponents from being able to place puzzle pieces or polyomino tiles onto a central board where we're all contributing to that board. And at the end of the game, you just don't want to have, you want to have the fewest amount of squares left over. And it's fast, it's highly competitive.
Yeah.
And once you have some players that are quite good at it, it just becomes so aggressive because instead of filling up the areas that you're able to, you're more looking at what is the other player doing and how can I stop them, or basically box them into a corner so they have no space to play on. And Maggie...
It's all about suffocating your opponent, blocking them out of options, and it's just generally, it's not a kind of feeling or emotion that I love feeling or being in when I'm playing a game. It's like I don't find it relaxing. I don't find it.
But like, this is Maggie's like pinnacle. I'm going to bed now.
Yeah.
Or
you have fun.
Like end of the game night with our friends. This is the game. This is one of the games where it's just Maggie is out. And so it's banned from coming out when Maggie's around. But when Maggie's not around, I will play it a lot and take it to work. I love it. It's a great game. That is number 3, Blockers. And on to the saga. We'll continue the saga of Maggie in the top of this list.
Again, I don't know if maybe it's because I'm the themer. Like I love living in that emotional world. It's like when things are bad, it's like they get really bad really quickly. It's just like 0 to 100. And then it's just like, I need to manage this. I don't know how to manage this. Please help me. Help.
And that's a good segue into our number 2, Unfair.
Unfair. Now, Unfair is a very unfair game where the game can be unfair to you, but also other players can be very brutal and ruthless and mean.
Well, okay, there are cards, and on those cards they give you 2 options. They give you an option where you can do something good for your own fun fair or your theme park, or you can do something negative to an opponent. And I have to say, after 10 years of being together, I am very sensitive to what Maggie gets sensitive about in games. And one of those things is building something like this beautiful theme park and having someone take something away from her or kick her sandcastle down.
You're like taking so much pride in creating this beautiful thing. Yeah.
And so when we were playing Unfair, I made a conscious choice to not use any of those powers against Maggie. And we played a whole game, and then I think we got to
a prosperous game in society.
No, I think we then played a second game, and I had not played a mean card towards Maggie. And then it got to the point where I drew one of those cards, and the good side of that card had no benefit for me. So I was like, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to use this card. And not only... Maggie just shut down. Maggie just completely went into herself. Looks like she was going to start crying. We had to pause the game and have a moment where I hugged Maggie. We talked, we rationalized it together.
It was like, I think I'm remembering correctly, I think it was Amélie. Like I love Amélie Poulain, that movie. And I think at one point, like she's very disappointed by, I'm hoping I'm remembering the right scene in the right movie, but she's very disappointed by something and she just kind of like turns into water and like just like disintegrates. Like that's what it felt like had happened inside.
That's what it looked like.
This is what had happened. Because we had a couple of very prosperous games, I kind of felt lulled into a false sense of security, and I didn't mitigate against the risk as much as I usually would. And so I kind of left myself wide open, and I overly confidently took on way too many blueprints that were all relying on a couple of very fragile, very vulnerable things that then had it was like a 1-2 punch, because it was like the thing that Amy did, and then the game had like a couple of additional mean things, that conditions or events that kind of affect everybody, that just fully made sure that just everything was leveled. It was just fully destroyed, and I was devastated.
But I mean, come on, expectations. The game's called Unfair.
It is. I got lulled into a false sense of security with the previous games. I'm like, this
so what you're saying is I should be mean from the beginning, and then you are fully aware.
Yeah, maybe that's
okay.
What
so I should
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So I shouldn't treat you with care around your.
Which is interesting, because that's something that when I would growing up with my mom, we would play tennis, and she would never let me win, kind of like your mom with chess. There was just no leniency, no nothing, and I'd be like, come on, I'm a little kid, let me have a little win. And my mom would be like, well, no, if I'm not tough on you, how are you gonna learn? That's how you. And so I was always like that. Always felt unfair, but look at me now, asking for that.
I'm too nice to you.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know if this is what I want.
Well, stay tuned, because I've learned now that I need to be mean to Maggie in games quicker, and so we should have a very strong relationship really soon. So that's our number 2, the appropriately titled Unfair.
Yeah.
And our number 1 game that made our relationship stronger, and the most hilarious stories that I have of Maggie, is the game Food Chain Magnate. So
this ultimate Maggie tantrum.
This is full Maggie tantrum.
Yeah.
So in Food Chain Magnate, if you're not familiar with it, it is a game that certainly rewards a lot of play, understanding the different strategies in the game. And it's a game where, a lot of Splotter games, if you don't get set up quickly and well and have a plan, you're going to get left behind very quickly. And Maggie got left behind pretty quickly on a lot of our first plays of Food Chain Magnate, which led to Maggie leaving the house.
Well, that was eventually. I'd eventually kind of, because it's you see it.
Left.
You see it in slow motion. You see the disaster kind of happening in slow motion, and then the thing that happens with a Splotter game is kind of that scene in Clockwork Orange where it's you're stuck there and you cannot move away until this whole horror has taken full place in front of your eyes. So it's the thing of nightmares, because you're a prisoner, there's no escape, and you have nothing to do but sit through and see all the consequences of your terrible choices.
It's like playing the Monopoly in the 90s with your family, and it just has to play out. And there's sometimes little you can do to help yourself. And I was picking up a few strategies pretty quickly. I mean, it helps that, the marketing theme really speaks to me. Marketing and advertising and food, all things that I love. So I was onto it, and Maggie just was getting destroyed, and game after game. And then she was just like, I'm going to go for a run. And she just ran out of the house.
It's one of those fight or flight, when you just have that surge of energy, and you can either suppress it, which is usually a bad idea. You don't want to lash out at someone. That's sort of a really destructive way of using that. But it's that needs to physically be worked out. So I'm just going to go and run. I'm just going to randomly go and run. Not I'm going to put activewear on and go forward. I'm no. Right here, right now, I'm just going to go and run it out.
She literally stood up and ran away, and I was left there with the game.
I just need to work out this energy.
I guess she'll come back.
Yeah,
and she did. And now we're better for it.
Yes. And now we have this lovely story of how embarrassing Maggie's tantrums can be.
Yeah, and Maggie does have tantrums. But anyway, that is our top 10 list. We've been meaning to make this video for a while, because these experiences, we joke about making our relationship stronger. Really, these experiences, they really make us laugh. But also, I think that, you know, when you are playing games with people that you care about, there's a lot you need to think about in terms of what people the emotions that people are going through when certain things happen in a game, and particularly a lot of the games on this list which happen to have a lot of take that or be intensely competitive. So it's good to be aware of those things, and we certainly are with each other. We know when the other person is hurting and can recognize, and generally speaking, we are not bad like winners or losers. There's no like rubbing things in.
No.
It's a
very safe space, because it's like we know that ultimately like it's a game, and so it's not dictating. I think when it gets really weird is when it's like you're kind of playing out like issues within any relationship dynamic, so be it like friendships or being like, you know, romantic relationships or whatever, or even with strangers, like that's when it can get very yucky.
Yes.
But when it's like, look, I'm gonna have a tantrum, but it's kind of like a safe tantrum. It's like, I know there's just a tantrum for the sake of like, you know, sort of like within the play world
that
of
is
this.
true.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the longer you play games, the more you learn to moderate your own emotions in games, and you know the types of games to steer clear of as well.
Yeah.
So if you know that something is like, you don't like deception games, for example, stay away from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so self-awareness really helps. But that is our top 10. There are a few common themes in our top 10 I thought about. There was one that there was a couple of splotter games.
Yes.
So you know, Splotter probably punching above its weight in our making our relationship stronger. A couple of polyomino tile games, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Paris, and what was the other one? There
Blockus.
was Blockus. So both things that Maggie didn't like. So maybe.
But I usually like, that's the thing, like I love polyomino tiles. I just those
not
ones
angry
just
ones.
Not, take that one.
Take that one.
Like,
And the other funny thing is there's probably a few games that begin with B. Barrage, Blood Rage, Bonanza, and Blocker. So, okay, if you have games beginning with B, we're just not going to review them anymore.
For B, beware.
Beware. Beware of the B
Be careful.
games. Yeah. Okay, we need to stop. That is our top 10 games that made our relationship stronger. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and let us know. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let us know in the comments, what are some games that have made your relationships in your lives stronger? We'll be back with more board game reviews really soon. But bye for now.